Most people say they can sense when something is about to happen. Something feels off or wrong. Maybe, if that were the case, this never would have occurred. Maybe I wouldn't be typing this story. It was late, but I couldn't sleep. Something in my mind was stuck in the on position and refused to budge. After an hour of tossing around under my sheets, I accepted the futility and moved myself into the front room. It had to be about 2 a.m., the television volume on low, playing some older sitcom I was barely aware of. I was on the couch, sleepily watching the ceiling fan. I was pretty calm, despite the late hour and my fatigue. It was the knock on my front door that jarred me from my position. I wasn't really suspicious as much as curious. I lived in a relatively well-off neighborhood. I had no reason to be scared, at first. I looked through the peephole. Nothing. I opened the door, leaving the chain lock intact. Nothing. I gave up and returned to my place on the couch. I think this time I dozed off, putting the knock down to my restless mind. Really, I had made it up, a figment of my imagination. That is, until it happened again. It was maybe 3 a.m. by the time I opened the door. I was met by something you all know, and fear. At the time, I had no idea. All I saw in front of me were 2 sad, helpless children.
"Hello?"
the first one said.
"We're lost. It's so late. Can we please come in? We have to call our parents."
He seemed so articulate, so smart for a child. He was dressed in such snappy attire it didn't once cross my mind something might be wrong. I just didn't notice the eyes. Somehow, my mind skipped right over that detail. The younger one, a girl, stood with her head down. She was dressed down compared to her brother. She wore her dark hair in pigtails, and it was just so long. Something in me was screaming to shut the door, yet I resisted. 2 small children alone with no help? I must help them. It was the only moral and ethical decision. While you turned them away, I invited them inside. At first, they seemed surprised. They had been expecting to have the door shut in their face. They couldn't remember the last time it had been so easy. "They won't hurt you, I promise. They're just lonely. They have no parents to take care of them. We must help these poor, black-eyed children. They're just lost, alone, and afraid. Besides, you see much better with eyes as black as theirs. You would understand if you let them in, too." Usually when you hear of black-eyed children knocking on people's door, it's some schmo living on a farm in the middle of nowhere. But this was not the case. I live in the suburbs, with neighbors all around and cars driving by at all hours of the night. And though I believe in the paranormal, I never thought I would have the encounter I had. It happened earlier this year around Thanksgiving 2015. Like any holiday, there were lots of neighbors hosting parties with their families and random kids running around and playing outside, which I guess is one of the reasons I was as foolish as I was that day. The sun was just going down, and I was home alone watching TV and eating some turkey, and that's when I heard a knock. I looked at the clock and it was almost 7:30. Thinking it was one of the neighbors, I swung the door open without even looking, and there stood 2 kids. One of them was a little boy with a baseball cap on, blue jeans, and a jersey. The other was younger and shorter, but with no cap and looking towards the floor. I looked at them and asked if they needed anything, and the older boy chirped, "Yes, we just need to come in to get our baseball from your yard." As soon as he said that, a chill went down my spine, and I had a horrible feeling that I should not let these boys in. I looked at him, studying his face, and in the back of my head, I knew something was wrong with him, but I just couldn't place it. He must have noticed my hesitation because he exclaimed, "Come on, ma'am, we just want our ball back." And that's when I realized this child had no whites in his eyes. I was kind of shocked and flabbergasted. At first, I thought they were black contact lenses. I looked over at his brother, and I noticed he had the same eyes. My face must have given it away, because as soon as I looked back to the leader, his eyes filled with hatred, and his cool smile turned into an evil smirk, and I swear he stood taller and more confident, staring into my eyes, and that smile that hinted he knew what I was thinking. At that moment, the atmosphere changed from what I perceived at the beginning of the encounter as two normal and innocent boys standing in front of me wanting their ball back, to two inhuman beings wanting to invade my home and create havoc onto my life. I just stared at him as he smirked. The smaller boy stood firmly and confidently on 2 feet, and he got taller, and he also stared. After about 30 seconds of staring, the smaller boy broke the silence.
"Come on, ma'am. Just let us in."
And the way he said it, I could tell something changed in him, because he spoke with such conviction in his voice. I stared at him and he smirked, all knowingly, and I didn't know what to say. In my head, I wanted to scream and call them out, tell them they were demons from another world and to get off my porch. But at the same time, I began to wonder about my safety. If I did that, it could be worse for me. I mean, what if instead of just asking to come in, they force their way into my home and my life? What if they get violent? I thought to myself, this charade we're playing by pretending this isn't what it is. If I don't play this game anymore, it could be detrimental to my own health and well-being. I made the decision to keep playing, and I looked at the smaller of the two beings and said, "Yeah, I'll get it for you," and grabbed the door and slammed it in their face and began walking. I turned on all the lights and sat on my couch with my feet pulled up to my chin, and I began to shake and rock back and forth and listen. But I heard nothing. No laughter outside, no children playing, no shuffling at my door. The world fell at a standstill as I sat there silently in the fetal position, and then I heard a slow knock at my door. I immediately stopped rocking and stood still, listening intently as another knock fell upon the door. I didn't know what to do. I stared at the door and listened as another knock came through the door. I refused to get up. My body so stiff and my arms so tightly wrapped around my legs I could feel the veins in my arms pumping in blood. And the slow knocks continued for at least 2 minutes, followed by silence so ear-piercing I wondered if I lost my hearing. The entire night went by and I sat in my living room, not knowing what to do. I don't know when I dozed off, but I woke up around 2 a.m. and the lights were off in my house. The TV screen that was once on Comedy Central now filled with black and white static. I don't know how, but something was inside of my home.